All right. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Kubernetes SIG Docs meeting. Today is March 5th, 2024. I'm your host today. My name is Ray Lejano. I'm one of the co-chairs along with Natalie Blacko, who's on the call here, and Divya Mohan, who is not on the call because of time zones. So we typically like to start off with, let me do some housekeeping items first. This meeting abides by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which boils down to just to be kind to each other. And this meeting, as I mentioned before I started the recording, this meeting is recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Anyway, let's start. We do like to have a few minutes to welcome any new contributors. So if anyone who's new or it's been a while, feel free to come off mute and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I would like to go ahead. My name is Arvind. I am a front-end developer and I went to a few meetups regarding the Kubernetes, Docker, and the cloud native space. And I did find them really interesting. And I saw that the SIG Docs had a meeting today. So I thought of joining it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to get involved more and help out. Thank you.
Yes. Welcome, Arvind. Anyone else that would like to introduce themselves? All right, let's proceed. So next portion, I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share the agenda, and actually let me try to copy and paste the link to the agenda onto the Zoom chat here. Link to agenda is on the Zoom chat. All right, let's proceed with updates and reminders. This week's PR Wrangler is Deepesh Rawat. So there's the Deepesh-Rawat is GitHub handle. And Niranjan is shadowing. So if you have any PRs you would like to be reviewed, please ping Deepesh. Next week's PR Wrangler is Tim Bannister with Redrack Carpe shadowing. And the following week is KubeCon, Cloud Native Con Europe. So there's no PR Wrangler assigned during KubeCon, Cloud Native Con Europe. But the week afterwards is Natalie Blacko with Amarnath shadowing. So that's about 4 weeks from now. There's a link to the PR Wrangler shift as well. And if you're interested in shadowing PR Wrangler, feel free to reach out to one of the co-chairs of SIG Docs. There's a little bit on the link here for PR Wrangler shifts. I am this week's issue wrangler, so I'll be looking at issues this week and triaging issues. And next week's issue wrangler is Princess Egbuna, and there's a link there for the issue wrangler shift as well. And if you've noticed any code of conduct violations in any meetings, any Slack, GitHub comments as well, please reach out to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct Committee. There's a link in the agenda, and you could reach out via email. It could be anonymous as well. So the first thing, moving on to the agenda, the first thing on the agenda is typically on how the release is going. So the current release cycle is 1.30. And first on the release agenda is docs. If anyone from the docs release team would like to give an update, please feel free to come off mute.
Hi everyone. So the update from the docs team is that we are almost done with sending out reminders for the PR ready for review freeze. We want to do it by the end of day because we want to give the contributors at least a week's notice. And the deadline for that is March 12th. So that's what's up from our side. It's almost done. Just a few pull requests and keps are remaining. So that's the update from our side.
Cool. How is it looking on? Do we looking at a good number of enhancements needing PR still, or are we kind of on track? That's kind of been the trend for a good number of releases.
So the draft PRs almost, I think, let me give you the specific metrics real quick. But the number is solid. I think it was 64 or something like that. We tracked
Sure.
those many caps for the draft PR stage, and we'll update the number for how many of them respond to the PR ready for review freeze. But we are expecting a good turnaround this time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Vyom. Any comments or questions to Vyom or to the release docs team? All right, let's move on to the release comms team. Anyone from the comms team that would like to give an update?
Yep, I can go ahead. So the PR for the mid-cycle blog is currently under draft, and we are still going to be making a couple of changes. Along with that, after speaking with the release team leadership, we have now updated our mid-cycle blog to concentrate more on upcoming changes we are excited about rather than deprecations, as there's just one minor removal for 1.30. And we have 16 feature blog placeholders, which are currently open, but that number may decrease once the code freeze kicks in, as a lot of them are marked as at risk.
Nice. One tip I would like to give out is to check out the API deprecations page on kubernetes.io. There's usually a few APIs that sneak in. That's going to be either deprecated or removed. This isn't. Yeah, so 1.30. Yeah, looks like it's not much for 1.30. So looks like everything is good. Once again, feel free to reach out once the blog is ready to be reviewed. Looks like it's still work in progress, and we'll add the link to the Slack channel for blog reviewers. But anyone can review the pull request for the mid-cycle blog. And then we'll take a look at that under review. Is there a target date for that to be published?
Yeah, March 8th.
March 8th. Okay, great. See that there. All right, let's go. And then I'm gonna try to make sure that is published by then or reviewed by then with the necessary LGTMs and approved labels. All right, any comments or questions for comms? All right, moving on to issues and PRs. One PR, Jacob Keller. I think I did see you on the call. Do you want to come off mute and introduce this PR?
Yeah, hi. So this is my first PR. It's just an issue I ran into setting up my first cluster. I was trying to make a staple set, and I had a persistent volume claim. It just wasn't working. So, yeah, I I had to learn you had to actually make a persistent volume, or as I've learned, you need to set up an automatic provisioning service. And I think that's not very clearly explained on the staple set documentation page. You can get that information if you follow some links and read. But I think it would be really helpful, especially for new people, if it was kind of like right up front when you need it. So
I'll take
should I talk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that?
Or you go ahead.
I was gonna say I'll take a look at it. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to have persistent volumes available for the stateful set.
Right,
In production, typically
as
that's
in-
not done. It's mostly done with the storage class. The storage
Right.
class will dynamically provision the persistent volume when you when you create
Right,
it.
I learned that since after submitting the pull request, and I gave it an update, and it reflects
Gotcha.
the current
Okay.
changes.
I'll take a look to see any way we could make the documentation easier, because for especially for those who are new to Kubernetes, that would be great. Because a lot of contributors are here use Kubernetes on a daily basis. So for us, it's like it may not be quite obvious that it's not stated, or it's not stated on the documentation.
Yeah.
So we could take a look at this and see how we could improve it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I want any sort of feedback or tips. I mean, um,
Cool. All right. Any comments or questions?
I just wanted to say that thanks so much for submitting the PR. That's one way that we tell a lot of new contributors is always a great way to like contribute. If you're reading our docs and there's something missing that you've encountered, like that's the way to put your contribution in. So I just want to say well done. That's great.
great, thanks. Yeah, I was a little I was debating if I should make an issue or a PR, but I kind of like the idea of, making a suggestion instead of just complaining about something. So is that kind of the right approach?
I would say it depends on the size of the possible change you're wanting to make. Something small that is going to just automatically be helpful because it's going to be useful and impactful right now. PRs are always welcome in that thing versus this is something that might be actually really great for a lot of people, but will take a bit more work and we might need to scope it out a little more in an issue. Those are the kind of times when you probably want to raise an issue.
Perfect. Thanks, that helps.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. Any questions or comments for Jacob? All right. Let's move on to discussion points. First one is actually from Divya, but I added it. There's a new GitHub discussion on streamlining the localization process. Let me just click on that link here. So a few things here. Like not many people know that there's a SIG docs localization Google group. So that's an email group as well. Most folks just joined the SIG docs group, but a lot of people are new contributors or want to contribute to localizations. And since not many folks or not everyone you knows about the Google group for localizations, so we want to utilize it more. So this also was write out like how we should create more process or document the process on how we bootstrap localizations as well. And there is a localization page, which I linked below here, where we should add some additional changes as well, or add any like the SIGDocs Google localization Google group. We should probably add it to this page as well too. So some more folks would know about it. Anyway, please feel free to add in your thoughts as well. Add in your thoughts and comments to this discussion. And then, all right, I see a hand raised here. SIGDocs.
Yes, hello, it is Abby, not SIGDocs. Sorry, I didn't realize I was still signed in as SIGDocs when I joined, and I didn't want to mess up your recording. But anyway, yes, so hi, I'm Abby. I am one of the localization subproject co-leads. So yes, fully think this is really great. We haven't had a real centralized effort on the localization Google group. There just is not a lot of members, and there wasn't a lot of need to have a whole separate Google group at the time. So we were just going off of the main SIGDocs group. But I do think that it's probably time to start using that new effort. And there is just a lot. I have a lot of thoughts that I added into the discussion about also helping, like if we're going to promote teams having more official Kubernetes meetings on the official calendar, or the localization calendar, then finding resources to help them be successful leading meetings and following the code of conduct and doing all the good stuff. So thank you to Divya for setting this up. I look forward to seeing if anyone else has any suggestions, and definitely we can make improvements on making the localization processes better. So thank you.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to say, Abby, is that I think like Ray and Divya and I have discussed a bunch of stuff over time, and we find that we get a lot of folks that may come to us first for things around localizations. But hopefully what this work will do is actually empower you and Syoko as the sub-project leads to have a lot more autonomy to be able to do a bunch of stuff and make decisions rather than any of us needing to, unless obviously overall for SIG docs or governance issues, you would need us. So I think this is a really good approach to actually empower you and Syoko to actually have a lot more autonomy and ownership over the localization sub-project overall. So I think this is a huge step forward. The other thing too that I wanted to kind of point out from what I added into the discussion is that hopefully, and I'm saying this on this call for a few folks that might be interested in stuff like this, is that what I hope that this will create is actually a better way to communicate really, really big things that need to go downstream into localization docs. And like a big removal of Docker shim, for example, is one area where like a better setup of something like this that then communicates down to localization teams would have been a way better approach in things like this. So I'm hoping we can set up something where communication with teams is also much more robust and straightforward as well for when we need to communicate from docs down.
Thank you, Natalie and Abby. Any comments or questions? All right, this next topic is from Abby. It's about the typical process for PRing, or what is the typical process for PR wranglers and localization PRs. So in my opinion, the PR wrangler rotation is created from the SIGDocs English site approvers or /owners. So whenever I'm a PR wrangler, I only look at the English site PRs and review English site PRs. I might, if there's any PRs, they're not categorized to localization. The extent I would do is to change the title, so I'll add the prefix for the localization. And typically the label is already add the proper localization label to make sure that's added as well. Does anyone else want to add their input on what they do as a PR wrangler and with localization PRs?
I will, in that I do sometimes look at localization PRs, specifically because sometimes very, very small ones that are link updates can actually be pushed through very quickly and don't need only the member of the localization team to push that. But I think it's a good question, Abby, because you may be noticing that a lot of the very, very old PRs we have are localization ones. And so I like to actually look at the very, very old PRs and try and tag in folks from the localization team, because it could be that it's just fallen off their radar, but their team is so small that they don't have the capacity to kind of jump back into those again, or even look at some of the older stuff again. So I think it can sometimes be helpful to jump into PR and give updates, or even ask, hey, are you still working on this? You can close and reopen, and giving them helpful things about helping, that could make them feel less pressure because you've got this old open PR there. But in terms of like largely what Ray was saying, focusing mainly on English, but I do preface to very, very old localization PRs to help move those processes through.
I do also update the links, or do look at PRs that update links as well. But I think this leads to like look into like if there's a localization with a lot of PRs that haven't been looked at, we could take a look to see how the localization approvers are doing, or if there's approvers that if there's not enough reviewers or approvers for that specific language. And so I guess it kind of leads to us into introspecting to see what like that health of that localization is, if there's many PRs that are waiting for reviews.
Okay, that all makes sense. Just for some context, Depish, who is the current PR wrangler for this week, joined the localization meeting yesterday, and raised that there were old PRs for some localization teams, and just sort of asked her on the process, and just for us to then highlight it a little bit more to the teams that had some of these older issues. So this is why I wanted a little more just to talk about this topic a little bit more, because I'm not sure that this approach is documented anywhere. I haven't checked, so it might be something we should add into the PR Wrangler docs to give people a little more context around what to do with localization PRs, and that, you know, it's helpful to nudge them along, but they're not also treated necessarily the same as the English PRs, because the teams that have maybe their own processes are a little bit different processes for closing or keeping things open than in English. But yeah, so that was some really great context there. So thank you. And I do definitely appreciate PR wranglers who are looking at localization PRs and sort of helping nudge teams and raising if they see a significant number, you know, a large number of language PRs that are not getting reviews and not closing, because that's a good signal. You know, raising that up is a good way to let us and the localization sub-project know that there might be some outreach we need to do to get people to re-engage with the team. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Abby. Any comments or questions on this topic? All right. That's the end of the agenda. Are there any other discussion topics that folks want to bring up?
I did have another question. I know
Oh, yeah,
I'm sort of
go ahead.
dominating the agenda today. And it's related about issue wrangling and how I posted this in the Slack channel, but I just was wondering how issue wrangling is going for people who are issue wranglers, and if there's any tips or tricks or advice to give to people who have upcoming, aka me, shifts as a PR wrangler.
Yeah, it's actually my first week as issue wrangler, and I actually planning to document on how I wrangle the issues. So in my head, I'm looking at triaging or adding triaging PRs that needs triage. So I have like a query for that. Probably in triage or probably close off any PR, any issues that are kind of support related. Excuse me while I cough. So we don't answer or we don't accept support related issues. So that should go off to you know, possibly a vendor or but since it's the upstream Kubernetes, we don't offer, let's say, support if someone's etcd is, you know, not doing well or not healthy. And so those are the ones I was going to look at. The first are triage issues. If they're accepted, if they're not accepted, and possibly close them if they're not accepted, or wait till there's other comments if why it should be accepted, and then look to see if there's any possible issues that are support related or that are not in the scope of the Kubernetes community, upstream Kubernetes community. Then I'll take a look, see where I go from there. Since it's my first week, so I'll take a look, see what I'll tackle after that. But anyone who's been an issue wrangler this year so far and want to provide any insights, please feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, me again. So yes, I have done issue wrangling this year. And I actually found I went into again, I focused on this idea of older issues to try and go in, since we have a decent backlog. And interestingly, Ray brought up a good point, this idea of having this point of being able to actually triage issues. Like, are they triaged so that our contributors can start working on them? Like that, for me, I was like, that's what we want to get to. And so I ran into a lot of issues that needed a lot more information in the descriptions themselves for us to even triage in the first place. So a few issues I was just going back and forth with the issue creator to be like, okay, I've got some questions for you. What do you think about this? To be able to better scope what the ask that they had. And then there was a couple that were really successful that were able to get the issue updated and us triaged, because I'll give an example. We had an issue that maybe we want to create EPUBs of our docs. And I was like, okay, which docs, how often, when do we do it? What's the scope of this? And kind of getting a bit more information so that something like that could be worked on by someone. So that's going to be completely up to you if you want to go that deep into some of the issues. But I found that I was doing that approach to get a lot of older issues out there and triage for the community, which also meant I worked on less issues because it took a bit more time. So that's like that's the trade-off there.
I also have a board, a GitHub board on long-term and important issues as well. So my goal is also to go through the current open issues and triage which ones should be prioritized long-term. That they're good issues, but it might take a while for us to get to it. All right. Any other folks that have been issue wranglers want to chime in? All right. Any additional topics folks want to discuss? Any questions?
Yeah, I also had a question about wrangling. Like, what does shadowing a PR or issue wrangling entail?
So when I've been a PR wrangler and I've had a shadow, and everyone is different, and everyone is different. But what I like to do is I like to have a short Zoom call and early on in the week with the shadow, and to review how I review PRs. So that goes into many things. It kind of review. We have a page on Kubernetes.io on how we review PRs. I go about and excuse me while I cough here. I go about how I review PRs. If there's any technical PRs that needs to be tested, I spin up a cluster. I test it out as well. Other folks may not do that Zoom session, but that's something that I like to do. And I check in towards the end of the week as well, because I tend to do most of my reviews on Friday when I'm a little bit free, have more time. So usually I'm pretty busy with work middle of the week. So I typically do most of my reviews early in the week and then also later in the week. So that gives time for the PR author to reply to any comments as well. So I check in as well towards the end of the week to see how the reviews are going or how the reviews went. If there's any questions, I like to keep it an open dialogue with whoever's shadowing me. As well, so they could ping me on Slack, async, with any questions, or if some folks have gave me links to all their PRs that they've reviewed, and asked me for a second review because PRs typically need two reviewers, or PRs need two reviewers a minimum. One reviewer giving an LGTM label, another reviewer who has approver rights to give the approved label, and the person who gives any org member, any Kubernetes org member can give the LG10 label. Anyone could also review as well. You don't need to be an org member to review, but you do need org member to apply the LGTM label. But any review is helpful, even if you're not an org member. So that's typically how I go about when I have a shadow for the PR wrangling. But like I said, folks might do things differently.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. I'm going to stop the recording